Welcome back to another exciting talking point where we're going to teach ordinary citizens how to become savvy and successful property investors using specialized trusts. Now, each week we bring you new episodes that take a deeper look into the topic that will make you rethink everything you know about investment and property. And the best part is that we offer an online course absolutely for free. But for more information on that, you'll have to wait until the end of the video where I'll give you a bit more information. But for today, we're going to be looking at a topic that has been plaguing South African property owners for a couple of months now. And that is the fact that more and more people are having properties that are being hijacked by syndicates. So Joburg has obviously been one of the hardest hit cities, with property hijackers taking control of entire blocks at a time, as well as moving into estates and complexes now as well. Now, the scary part is obviously the complacency of these SA police services, which means that we as property owners and investors need to take the matters into our own hands and create as many barriers as possible to prevent the illegal occupation. Now, to talk a little bit more on this topic, I've invited the founder of the Wealth Masters Club, Mr. Coert Coetzee, to join me. So Coert, thank you so much for your time.
Hello, Damien. Thank you for the invite. It's nice to be here again.
Coert, now every week we talk a little bit on these topics, and obviously you are an expert in everything to do with property and investments. So if I can just ask you for your opinion on, these hijackers that come in and take the properties, how do they take ownership of a property if it belongs to somebody else?
Right, Damien. Let's just qualify the word ownership, because they're not taking ownership, not without the permission of the real owner, the seller. And they're not buying it, so obviously there's no seller. So yes, they take possession of the property. I know it's more or less the same thing, or it sounds the same, but it's different in the eyes of the law. So how they go about it is they watch a specific house, they target the house, and or a building, but we are talking houses here today because it is not just buildings and apartment blocks and stuff like that anymore. They now take residential property and townhouses, and even in estates. So what they do is, even in an estate, so let's take an estate because that's the most difficult one. Then you will see if they can do it in an estate. It's so much easier for them to do it in a property that's not in a security estate. So what they do is one of the syndicates, because syndicates, let me just explain that to you. These guys are very, very well organized. I spoke to attorneys who are handling these cases on a daily basis. And they told me that these syndicates are very well organized. They are very wealthy. And you can understand why if you hear the whole story. So they have also some of the best legal teams in the country that help them if there's a problem. So what they do is, one of the syndicate members, for example, will rent a house in a security estate, and then or a townhouse complex. And then they will see how the people, the owners are moving around, if they go on holiday often and those things, and if they go away for weekends often, or even if the house is standing empty because the owner lives actually most of the time in another city. So then what they do is, the moment that they see the owner is away, and they know it is one of these normal activities, but he's away for the weekend, if he's not there on a Friday night, then they will move in. They have another division of the syndicate that will do the breaking and entering. So they will break into the property, open the house, and they will steal the valuables like the TV and stuff like that. So they want to make it look like a normal burglary. So what then happens is they move, that division of the syndicate moves then out with the valuables, and hopefully for them, then the police won't catch them. What happens in the meantime is the syndicate already have then tenants ready to move into the property. Also immediately, that same night, the tenants move in with their children, with their clothes, with their bedding, and so on. And if they moved in with their personal stuff, and they are not the ones who stole anything in that house, other people stole. So they are not criminals, the ones moving in. They are not seen in the eyes of the law as criminals. They just move in. They are tenants. They are renting that house from the syndicate. And sometimes these tenants do not know better. They think it is the syndicate's house, although I don't believe that story, actually. I think they know exactly what they're doing. But that is what is presented to the courts, is that they are tenants. In some cases, there's even a proper lease agreement in place now with that illegal tenant. So when you come back from weekend or holiday, then you find somebody else is living in your house, using your furniture and everything. They moved in a furnished house. Fantastic. So that is how they do it. And then to get them evicted, that's the difficult story. I think I answered your question, but I think you have more questions now.
But you just got me started now. So obviously, based on your own opinion and experience, what is the law doing to protect the actual homeowner, the person that owns that initial property?
Oh, the law is on our side. Don't worry. The law is on our side. So these tenants, these so-called tenants, they fall now under the PI Act. And then in terms of the PI Act, you now have to start a legal process to get them evicted. You cannot just throw them out. That's illegal. Then you will go to jail. So you have to follow the eviction process. It's not much protection for the owner here, I can tell you, because as I said, the syndicates have some of the best legal teams. They now represent the tenant, that so-called tenant. And they are not, also talking about tenants, something that I just want to make clear, they're not just taking houses from people who own the house, they're taking houses from tenants, real tenants, the legal tenants in houses, if the tenants go away. So it's your house that you rent out to a tenant, like especially in our club, that is what the case will be. It will be might be a rental house or one that we rent out. And then they chase our tenants out and they move in. So now you have an unhappy tenant on your side, your real tenant. And then you have to fight this in terms of the PI Act. So yeah, they drag their feet. According to the attorneys doing these things on a regular basis, they say it can take, worst case scenario, it can take up to 18 months to get an eviction order. That is how they drag it with their legal team. And in the meantime, you are responsible towards your tenant, the one that was now driven out of the property, to help that person to get alternative accommodation. In the meantime, you still have to pay the levies and the maintenance on the building, all the duties applicable. If there's a mortgage on it, you still have to pay the mortgage. So it's a difficult situation, very difficult. So the protection that the law is giving us is not worth much.
A very scary fact there. Just speaking about protection, obviously, like we said in the beginning of this intro, we're at that stage where we as property investors need to take matters into our own hands and add, our own security. So what would you then suggest to homeowners to prevent this from happening? How can they add layers of protection for themselves?
Yeah, that is what when I spoke to the attorneys doing these things, handling these cases for homeowners, they said to me also that the best advice that they can give with their experience is that you have to prevent something like this to happen, because it's a nightmare after it happened. So prevention is better than cure, much better, and a lot cheaper also, a lot cheaper, because these attorneys are expensive. And especially when you go to it, when it ends up in the high court, then it needs an advocate also, which is a lot more expensive than an attorney. But anyways, there is a light in the tunnel, and it's not a train. So prevention is easy. Prevention is relatively cheap in comparison to the danger that we have here. So it is just a matter of getting armed response for your property. Now that is something that people do not always consider for properties that they let out. Many people have armed response for their own units, of their own houses, their personal residences. I mean, I'll call it that. So they have armed response, but they are not concerned about their letting properties. They think it is the tenant's problem. He can organize the armed response if he wishes to. Yes, maybe that is the way to think about it. But the problem is when the property get possessed, repossessed, or not repossessed, but occupied, illegally occupied by these syndicates, then it is your problem. It's not your tenant's problem. It's your problem also. Oh, the tenant will also be unhappy, but it's your problem also. So it's better for the owner to take these steps. Get armed response for your property. And the cost of armed response is not so big. All depends on how many cameras and stuff you are going to use. But the thing is, what you have to try and do is to catch the burglars, the first division moving in. That is the one that you have to catch. The ones who are actually breaking and entering, that is the ones that you have to catch. Now, armed response can do that. They can catch them even while they are busy there. So we are talking proper armed response companies with quick response. That'll be the first prize. If you can catch the burglars in action and catch them and contact SAPS, the police, to come and get them. There the law is on our side. You just have to use a proper armed response company that knows how to operate and do these things. So yes, then what you should do is, the whole idea of this is to prevent the so-called tenants to move in with their personal belongings. That is what you want to achieve here. If you can prevent that from happening, problem solved, because then you know that there might be a problem. They will contact the owner. The owner can arrange now with the armed response company to post a guard there for the rest of the weekend, or whatever the case may be, or contact the tenant and make arrangements for the tenants to come back, cut his holiday short, or whatever the case might be. But prevention, that is the way. Catch them before they move in with their blankets and their clothes and their children and their dogs and their cats.
Good. And then you obviously do a lot of talks around South Africa about, putting properties in a trust to not only protect them physically, but also from creditors and things like that. Can a trust also then be used as almost a prevention tool for these crime syndicates?
Personally, I think it can. I did ask the attorneys whether that is possible. And they couldn't answer me because they never had, so far, they never had the trust property being occupied illegally. So that is already giving me the answer, actually, that I was looking for. So although I cannot guarantee any of this, I can assure you that we, as a very big investors club with thousands of houses that we are managing for our members, we haven't had one incident of illegal occupiers taking or hijacking one of the houses of our clients. And I think it is because all these houses that we are managing are registered in trusts. So yes, if the attorneys then say that these syndicates are well organized with excellent legal teams, then I think the advice that they get from their legal teams is stay away from the houses that are registered in trusts, because it's a complete different scenario. You see, a trust is protected by the master of the Supreme Court, the High Court, while an individual, if a house belongs to an individual, that individual is protected by the Constitution and things like that. But a trust is protected by the master of the High Court. The master of the High Court signs off on every trust, every resolution, everything. And so now, going on a court case to get an eviction order, where the court to which you apply is actually the one that is actually the controller of this trust to which this property belongs. And now you bring it to the court. I think the sympathy of the judge will definitely be on the side of the trust.
And then, Coert, last question I've got, might be a bit of a tricky one to answer, but what advice would you have for someone who's already in the situation where they may have had a property being hijacked already?
If so, I think they can contact us and we can put them in touch with the attorneys that I'm talking about, because they are the best ones to handle that case now. They have gone through many of these cases already. They know what works, they know what arguments to present to the judge. So contact us and we will put you in touch with the correct attorneys who can do this.
Coert, have you got any other closing thoughts on this before we end off today?
Yes, Damien, I think what is important is as I said, we still don't know whether a trust will work better than with a property that is registered in the individual's personal name. I think it will, but it's just my opinion, but it still has to be tested in court. So just keep that in mind. But what I can say is that if there is a trust that will do better than having it in the name of an individual, then it is a TTS trust. So when I say a trust can perhaps be the solution, I'm not talking about any trust, because most trusts in South Africa are not even worth the paper it is written on. It must be a TTS trust.
Fantastic. Coert, thank you so much for the time. And for those of you watching, if you liked what you heard today and you want to find out a little bit more about what Coert does and how he does it, and in particular, how he suggests using a TTS type of trust for your property investment, then click on the link in the description below, which will have the details of how you can register for our training happening this weekend. It is free and it is in both English and Afrikaans. So make sure you register. We only have a certain number of links that we can send out every week. And further than that, if you would like any more information or advice, please click on the contact us link in the description below if you'd like the information for our attorneys like Coert mentioned, and then our team will assist you and put you in touch. But other than that, thank you so much. And thank you, Coert, for your time today.
It's my pleasure, Damien. Thank you. Cheers.